Episode 4, Quite Contrary, the Other Mary. Again, if you want to jump in right into the Christmas story, skip ahead a bit, because now that we've talked about Mary, I want to talk a bit more about the family situation of both Mary and Joseph. If you focus just on the traditional Christmas text, there is only one Mary. But by the time you get to the Easter story, there are bunches. It was during my study and dissection of these Easter texts that I sorted out, in my mind at least, who these Marys were. How to start. Let's jump ahead 3 decades. Imagine Jesus is ministering and touring the Holy Lands with his disciples. During this tour, he encounters people who knew him when. These people that knew him before the ministry years seem taken aback, not because of a Saul-Paul character transformation, because modest Jesus comes from modest origins. Matthew 13:55. Whence hath this man this wisdom, and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brethren James and Joseph, and Simon and Judas? And his sisters, are they not all with us? To rephrase, somebody said, "Hey, I know this guy's family," in order to try to diminish Jesus, or because the divine nature he saw contrasts with the very human nature of the rest of the family. In the previous episode, we discussed 2 old accounts of the origin of Mary, which referenced Joseph as an old man with sons, assumedly from a previous marriage. Regardless of where you stand on the validity of those accounts, Matthew opens up a whole can of worms with this verse. First, ask yourself if Joseph is alive during Jesus' ministry. How old do you picture him in the Nativity? This passage almost mentions him in the present tense, as if he's still alive. We'll get back to Joseph later. Next, it obviously points out that Mary is his mother. To help clarify things, I will give Mary the last name of Joachim, so we can later clarify all of our Marys. According to both the legends and the Catholic Church, Mary Joachim only had Jesus. Other Christian denominations boldly claim these children mentioned here in 1355 as younger brothers and sisters of Jesus because it seems natural and regular for a husband and wife to have more children. This point can be endlessly debated in theory. Some people will explain that brothers equals brethren equals disciples, so that Mary and Joseph can continue to have only one son. Could be. However, when I read Acts chapter 1, verse 12, it lists each disciple, including James Alphaeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas the son of James, but then also talks about, quote, the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary Joachim, and his brothers. Mark 3:31, as well as Matthew 12 and Luke 8, also seem to strongly juxtapose brothers against disciples. Verse 31, there came then his brethren and his mother, and, standing without, sent unto him, calling him. And the multitude sat about him, and they said unto him, Behold, thy mother and thy brethren without seek for thee. And he answered them, saying, Who is my mother and my brethren? And he looked around about on them which sat about him, and said, Behold, my mother and my brethren. For whomsoever shall do the will of God, the same is my brother and my sister and mother. There are a couple of other verses that seem to pile on the sibling idea, but instead of ignoring them, let's take a look. Later in Jesus' ministry, things become a bit dangerous, especially in Jerusalem. Since this is a Christmas story, I'll move past the shady nature of the anecdote to just give the lines about his brother. John, chapter 7, verse 1. After these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Judea, because the Jews sought to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of tabernacles was at hand. His brethren therefore said unto him, Depart thence, and go into Judea, that thy disciples also may see the works that you doest. For there is no man that doeth anything in secret, and he that himself seeketh to be known openly. If you do these things, show thyself to the world. For neither did his brethren believe in him. Then Jesus said unto them, My time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. The world cannot hate you, but it hateth me, because I testify of it, that the works therefore are evil. Go you up unto this feast. I go not up yet unto this feast, for my time is not yet full come. When he said these things unto them, he abode still in Galilee. Again and again, it seems to imply actual brothers of Jesus. However, I am not quite ready to accept that Mary had several children. As a Luthericist, I want to reconcile everything rather than cast stones at one of the glass houses. What are other choices, though? Well, A, brothers do not mean siblings. B, Mary and Joseph had children after Jesus was born. C, Joseph had a previous wife who died and left him with children. Or D, none of the above. I'm going with D, so bear with me a little while longer. First, let's go back to a point from an earlier episode. Do you remember the boring name list given by legal Luke and biological Matthew, and how it differed as early as Jesus' grandfather? Was it Heli or Jacob? Tradition says his maternal grandfather was Joachim. Let's establish an old Hebrew custom found in Genesis. Judah had a son named and a daughter-in-law named Tamar. When died, he was legally obliged to let Onan provide her with a son. Things got a little complicated after that. My point is, when you have two brothers and a brother dies childless, the surviving brother has to take her as a wife, or, if the brother died with children, the wife and children become the son of the brother. Yes, it seems strange to us, but it was a general welfare, legal inheritance issue back then. If Grandpa Jacob died, then Joseph became the son of Heli, even though he was genetically the son of Jacob. Since older brothers usually die first because of age, this legal shift probably happened a lot. When Luke wrote his account, he just went with Grandpa Heli because, law stuff. Matthew, who might have known more because he was a local boy, might have known Joseph's biological father was Jacob, and traced the bloodline for the point he was trying to make. Both were right. So what if Joseph had an older brother? In the strictest gospel reading, there obviously only seems to be Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus at the manger. And the sheep too. Where are the older brothers from another mother? Again, you could theorize and answer, but in the Christmas story, there is no support. 30-year time jump. Jesus is now hanging on the cross. All disciples but one have split. It is safe for the women to go near the cross, sexist Romans, as well as a disciple that either has a magical golden ticket or is so young they don't see him as a threat, age-based Romans, the beloved disciple, John. John stood at the cross, and when he later wrote about what happened, he included names. John chapter 19, verse 25. And there stood at the cross of Jesus his mother, who I assume to be Mary Joachim, and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. Boy, was that in a positive phrase within a list? How many women did you count? 3 or 4? Okay, oh boy, roll up your sleeves. This is going to get a little messy. So, woman A is Mary Joachim, his mother. Woman B is Mary Magdalene, right? Woman C, his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, or his mother's sister, which means woman D, Mary the wife of Clopas. So 3 or 4, it's hard to tell. Come on, John. Why did you have to mess up this list? Let's see if the other disciples added any clarity when they gave their lists. Mark chapter 15, verse 4 says, "There were also women looking on afar, among whom was Mary Magdalene, woman B, Mary, the mother of James the Less and Joseph." Oh boy, is that A, C, or D? And Salome. Oh no, is that C or D? And later, at the tomb, Mary Magdalene, B, Mary, the mother of Joseph, again, is that A, C, or D, saw where his body had been laid. Oh boy, that made it worse. Matthew 27:56. Let's see what Matthew has to say. Among which was Mary Magdalene, so she's there all the time, and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph. Again, is that A, C, or D? And the mother of Zebedee's sons. Wait, is that in a positive phrase, or is that another woman? C, D, or E? And later, at the burial, which is 27:61, and there was Mary Magdalene, again, solidly there all the time, and the other Mary, who? Sitting over against the sepulchre. At Easter morning, Matthew 28:1 reads, "In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the tomb." Luke also includes a list a bit later, when he says in 24:10, it was Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary the mother of James, again, A, C, or D, and other women, oh boy, that were also with him, which told these things unto the apostles. Clear as mud? To help clarify the women, let's first clarify the men, starting with James. Now, there are 3 prominent Jameses. James, the son of Zebedee, is the older brother of John, the beloved disciple. This James is one of the 12 disciples. This James is one of the Fab Four that Jesus often has special moments with. He is the first disciple to die as a martyr in the book of Acts when he is beheaded. The next guy is James, the son of Alphaeus. This is another of the 12 disciples. He does not get a lot of biblical playing time. The third guy is James Omicrus, which is neither a last name or Irish. Okay, I'll explain. Okay, Mark mentions James Omicros when he says his mother was at the cross. It says, Mary, the mother of James the Less. Now, you could speculate that James Zebedee is famous James, and James the Less could be Omicros. But the term does not mean unimportant, but instead, small. Galatians 1:19 eliminates this James as a disciple, but instead adds that he was the Lord's brother. This third James later becomes a major player in the book of Acts. Check out Acts 14. And in church history as James the Just, or even better moniker, James the Righteous. Okay, I am ready to make my turn on this complicated point. It's time to meet Clopas. Clopas. The wife of Clopas is key, but John is the only one to mention him. So, who is Clopas? I'm going to explain why option D, none of the above, fits the best. I think Clopas was the brother of Joseph and uncle of Jesus. Support? I'm going with 3 and in a positive. Here's my explanation. When John says, there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother, we're talking about Mary Joachim, the Virgin Mary, and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. He knew there were 3 Marys. Now, Sister Mary. Now, it is really, really improbable that Joachim and Anna had a baby girl named Mary, and then later named another daughter Mary, because, weird. However, if Uncle Clopas died, his wife would become the welfare wife of Joseph and the sister-in-law of Mary Joachim. Instead of polygamy, think of it as legalized welfare. Now, the other, Mrs. Zebedee. I've heard many theories that Jesus was a cousin of James and John, the sons of Zebedee. I get that the previous pages are confusing, my head still hurts, and arguments can easily be made. The wife of Zebedee was there. The mother of James was also there. So let's just be clear here. So the brothers of Jesus are listed as James, Joseph, Simon, and Jude, or Judas. The children of Zebedee are mentioned as James and John. Matthew 27 can certainly support this cousin John theory, but it really doesn't fit with the rest of the story. Remember the baptism? James, John, Andrew all rushed to Peter to announce they'd found the Christ. Wouldn't cousins already know each other? So, for me, the cousin theory is officially dropped. Let's discuss Aunt Mary, Mary Amram. Again, if John uses an appositive phrase to clarify which of the 3 Marys he's talking about, it reads, and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas. Aunt Mary is not biologically related. It says sister, but it means aunt. Joachim did not have 2 daughters named Mary. Uncle Clopas met and married a young woman named Mary, who I surnamed Amram after her father. And later, his brother Joseph married a different woman named Mary Joachim. Let's talk about how the theory works. Imagine you are in Nazareth. You want to build a new house. Need a carpenter? Great, you're in luck. It just happens that Jacob and Sons Carpentry have some of the best carpenters around. The eldest son, who would one day inherit the business, is Clopas. He's been groomed, just like James is groomed to take over Zebedee's fishing business, to take over the business as the oldest son. He's wealthy and already has a growing family with his wife, Mary, daughter of Amram, and children, James, Joseph, Simon, Jude, daughter, etc. The younger brother, Joseph, will not inherit the business. He is not wealthy and probably has a hard time saving up money for a bride and or dowry. He might even need to find a new vocation one day. Remember the lot of the second son? Andrew became a religious trainee to John the Baptist, and John the disciple became a religious trainee as well. The second son either joins the church or gets a new career. Joseph knows carpentry, but probably begins a study of Scripture. During the Christmas story timeline, Uncle Clopas and Aunt Mary simply keep on keeping on up in Nazareth. They might have some or all of the siblings listed in Matthew 13:55. Their children, James, Joseph, Simon, and Jude, will one day be cousins of Christ. Nice theory. But is there support? Yes. When I began to research James the Just, otherwise referred to as James Omikros, James the Less, James the Little, I first came across the stories written down by the Jewish historian Josephus. James the Just was a double agent leader of both Jewish and Christian faiths. This is why Paul and Peter asked him for a ruling in Acts 14:44. Paul later talks about him in Galatians 1:19 when he says, "But other of the apostles saw I none, save James the Lord's brother." Remember, of course, that apostle is closer to follower than classic disciple. But anyways, James, the son of Zebedee, is dead. This is not James Alphaeus either. This is James the Just, the Lord's brother. This is the same guy who wrote the book of James. Later, James the Just is killed on the Passover for not betraying the Christians by denouncing Jesus. He becomes a martyr. Two early church writers also added some clarification for this theory. Oh, wait until you get a load of this name. Hegesippus, who lived from 110 to 180, explained that Clopas was the brother of Joseph. In his explanation, he described how Simon followed his brother James as bishop of Jerusalem, and that both were cousins of Jesus. While I really like this theory, he claims that Clopas is the younger brother who becomes the foster father of Jesus, the carpenter's son. Papias, the bishop of Hierapolis from the year 70 to 110, wrote that Simon was a cousin of Jesus and was the brother of James the Just, who died at the age of 120 around 70 AD when the temple was destroyed. In this case, James is almost 50 when Jesus was born, meaning Clopas had to be a lot older than Joseph, which is why, even though I like the Hegesippus theory, I don't think we've got the brothers as the right age. Anyways, James is a lot older, he's almost 50 when Jesus was born, meaning that Clopas had to be a lot older than Joseph. James is not a disciple, but acts as a mediator between Paul and Peter. Remember the older brother? Well, Jude became the author of Jude, who claims to be the brother of James. So when you hear about the other Mary, Mary's sister, the wife of Clopas, the mother of James the Less and Joseph, the mother of James, this is Mary, the daughter of Amram. She is the wife of Clopas. She is Aunt Mary. Now, the reason to bring up all these names is not to just give you a headache, but to show that the family structure of Jesus could have been a lot more complicated than your basic nativity set portrays. Having an aunt and uncle, as well as cousins, really will complicate matters later on. So here are a few questions for you to ponder. Were the cousins jealous of the wonder baby Jesus? Did something bad happen to Clopas while Jesus was growing up? And how did the extended family react to all of the strange things that Mary and Joseph were about to do after Gabriel showed up? You've been listening to Jason Lee Willis's podcast series, Examining Christmas. The music you've heard is from YouTube's audio library. I hope you can join me again for episode 5, a message about messengers. Until we meet again.